Welcome into the Minnesota football party on this Wednesday. It's the Care 11 Spectacular. Julia Daniels, Reggie Wilson, and of course, Ron Johnson. I'm Sam Ekstrom. So glad you joined us today. We do this every Wednesday, talking Vikings for the next 45 minutes or so. I'll try to keep my speaking to a minimum today. The voice is not 100%, but we are brought to you by FanDuel. You can make every moment more, and right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when their first $5 bet wins. A busy day yesterday in Vikings land. Josh Oliver extends for 3 years. We discussed that deal. Christian Darrisaw back on the field after 7.5 months post-injury. B-Flow spoke at the podium, and I posed the question, how much patience will the Vikings have with JJ McCarthy? It's all coming up on today's Care 11 show. Let's meet the panel once again. Let's go around the horn. Julia.
Hi, guys. Julia Daniels, sports reporter at Care 11. Oh, man. Wednesdays are my Monday, and this Wednesday feels like I got a lot of catching up to do with all the stuff that's happening with the Vikings. So excited to get into it.
Reggie Wilson, sports director at Care 11. And we got a Sean Mannion mention from one Josh Metellus. In comparison to JJ McCarthy, we'll talk about it.
Don't know if that's a good thing.
Well, Brian Johnson, former Gophers NFL wide receiver. Yep, and I got the voice thing that Sam has, except for mine's from softball. But we got to talk about kid gloves. Are there going to be kid gloves on the quarterback this season? We'll have to talk about that coming up.
And again, I'm Sam Ekstrom. We start with the breaking news. I think I've got the breaking news set. Let's hit the breaking news sounder, even though it's a day old. Josh Oliver, 3-year extension through 2028, over $20 million in guarantees. Vikings have their 2 tight ends locked up long-term. This continues, Ron, the trend. Vikings are going for continuity. They want to keep the team, the roster intact for a multiple-year window. And I don't know if people expected this deal. I mean, a part of me thought they would just let him finish the contract out and then they'd reevaluate. But they get Josh Oliver, not 1 year, not 2, 3 more years. So they have Josh Oliver for a total of 4 years. The blocking, exquisite. I mean, the offensive line now with the 5 they have, plus Oliver, plus the 2-back system, I think they're looking ahead and saying, all right, now we're getting really serious about the run game with Josh Oliver being a big part of it.
Yeah, when you look at JJ McCarthy, I think that's the key is when you have a rookie quarterback, you can do this kind of stuff. And this is what everybody's been hoping for, praying for, wanting to see happen. You look at Patrick Mahomes early in his career. You look at Lamar Jackson early in his career. A lot of teams do this when they have a rookie quarterback or a young quarterback under their first. Brock Purdy with the 49ers, same thing. But here's the thing. Brock Purdy, right, 2 to 3 years into this, they had to give him money. Patrick Mahomes, 3 to 4 years into that, they had to figure out the money. Lamar Jackson, they had to, so I think that's why that window is there. 3 years, we got to see what we got. If we can't win it, then we know we either got to move on from JJ McCarthy, sign JJ McCarthy to big money, and when we sign our quarterback to big money, our offense is going to start to look like the Chiefs. You look at the Chiefs, they don't have really big pay weapons other than Travis Kelce. And I think that's the key to this is you understand now we can load up at receiver. We can load up at tight end. We can keep a high pay running back. Our offensive line is expensive. Our defense is expensive because our quarterback is not going to ask for $400 million right now. But I do know there are talks about the CBA trying to create a cap window where quarterbacks are separate from the 53. You have 53 players, and then you have your 1 to 2 quarterbacks that their salary does not affect your overall salary cap. And they're trying to figure out a way to do that because they're saying quarterbacks are so expensive. Teams need to have good quarterbacks, but you can't have a good quarterback and a good team. It doesn't go together when you look at the money. And so now I don't know if that's 2 years from now, 3 years from now, but you look at the college football scope, $2.8 billion being paid back to players. I think the NFL's realizing, you know what? There has to be a way to do this. If the college football can figure out a way to pay players $20 million a year divided up over all the athletes, there has to be a way for us to be able to pay just our quarterbacks. And then the other 53 guys, we can have another pool of, call it $350 million that we can then pay them with.
Julia, you good with the spend on Josh Oliver? I think when people originally, when Josh Oliver signed, I think people said, it seems like a lot for your second tight end. And now they give him another 3 years. So you're going to have like 6 years or 6 total years of a pretty expensive tight end too. You think Josh Oliver's worth it?
Yeah, I think he's one of those guys that kind of goes. I think Aaron Jones even said this, like he kind of flies under the radar, like people forget about him in a sense. And I think it has to do with like just him being a blocking tight end. Number one, like that's like his style. And then also he's such a quiet guy to begin with. Reggie and I joke all the time that we're like, sometimes we want to ask Josh Oliver questions, but it's just you're probably not going to get a great answer because he's always just either giving everybody else the credit or he just has like he's very shy when it comes to media. But I do think it's worth it. I think he had a career year last year, and I think that was also because he was making up for when TJ Hawkinson was out too, and so he stepped up and he made moves. I will say there were some like crucial drops that he made last season that I remember, but. Like I said, he's a blocking tight end. That's like his big thing. I think he's one of the top blocking tight ends in the league. But I do think, especially when it comes to having like a rookie quarterback, to having a guy like Josh Oliver is essential to your offense, right? And especially if you're trying to establish a run game as well, like that's something that they're putting an extra focus on this season. Then I think that it would behoove them to keep somebody like Josh Oliver around.
Yeah, Reg, your thoughts on Oliver? It looks like probably he's going to play 500 snaps a year for this team for the foreseeable future. He's not necessarily a huge producer, like averages about a reception per game, averages about a touchdown every 2 months, but it's that blocking impact that it's not sexy, but it's impactful.
Yeah, and whatever he adds to the pass game is really just kind of gravy at that point. Like he caught a few touchdowns last year. It's so funny because I was like trying to cut some video for him yesterday, and I'm like, okay, I'm going back over the games. I'm like, okay, Packers, Rams, Colts, and I'm trying to look for that video or whatever. And it's fine. Like he did what he needed to do. To Julia's point, there were some drops, and I know we remember that crucial fumble that he had that just killed the opening drive in that game. But I just think he's a guy who is very reliable. I thought it was interesting. Aaron Jones was just grinning ear to ear yesterday talking about his impact, and he was like, yeah, he's a guy that until you get up on him, you're like, whoa, like he's big, he's like having another tackle out there. And when you have that, it's evident to me that Kevin O'Connell is doubling down on beefing up the front and becoming a team that really kind of resembles what JJ McCarthy had at Michigan, where where you were like, oh, was it because his skill set is limited, or is it because Jim Harbaugh just likes to run the ball? That's his philosophy. And I think, where you stand, it just depends on who you ask. But I think, having a rookie quarterback, not trying to put too much on his shoulders, because at times last year they put a lot on Sam Darnold. And at times we saw when they couldn't necessarily get the run game going the way that they wanted to, it still had to revert to a lot being put on Sam Darnold. And when the pressure was what it wasn't a good situation for the Vikings offense and Sam Darnold. So I think, you beef up, you get guys like Fries and Kelly, and then you ink Josh Oliver, who is a very big man, very strong guy on that front, and you're beefing it up. If you want to go 11, you got a guy who can do that, double tight end sets, and you can run the football with Mason and Jones. So I think it's just another way to really help McCarthy along.
Ron, I'm curious your thoughts on Reggie's point about going 11, going 3 wide receivers. You've got Ham, you've got the 2 tight ends. You're going to want to protect your quarterback as much as you can. I know there's a lot of discussion about Ty Felton or Jalen Naylor. By the way, Ty Felton going on the St. Brown podcast today. That's kind of an interesting one. But do you think we're actually going to see that much 3 wide receiver formation, or that many 3 wide receiver formations in this offense?
Well, I mean, we know we got Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson. I think the key is going to be who is the 3rd wide receiver. I think, you got Jalen Naylor, you got Ty Felton. I think, Keenan McCardell said this when he and I were hanging out. He's like, I don't know what's going to happen after training camp, but he said, I do know the guys we release, some teams are going to pick them up. Like, so he knows they have some weapons that aren't going to make this roster because you just can't. You can't keep 7 to 8 wide receivers. You probably can only keep 5 the way this roster is made up, maybe 6 if you have a special teams guy. And so when you look at all the names that are surrounding this team right now, and you look at 11 personnel, Josh Oliver, here's where the Vikings, I think, realize they need to go 12 a little bit more. I mean, you look at what the Lions did to them. You look at the way they ran the ball, the way they were willing to not give up on running the ball no matter what the situation was. I think that's the key for this team. You know, you look at how the Ravens, handle it. Even though you have Lamar Jackson, you have, weapons like Rashad Bateman and Zay Flowers, you still realize I got Derrick Henry back there. We need to run the ball. But also Josh Oliver can make catches. Julia brought up a good point. He covered for TJ Hockenson when he was out. So he does have the ability to make catches, even though people don't put him as a catching tight end. So I think it's going to be a healthy mix of 11, 12 personnel. But, even in the red zone, that's the key. Like, there was way too much 11 personnel in the red zone, and the Lions feasted on it. You have to be able to put your head down, say, you know what? I got 5 big uglies up there, and they're going to handle your 4. I got 2 nice, strong tight ends. I got a fullback. They're going to handle your other 3 linebackers. That's where I think the Vikings need to figure it out, and I think that's the reason for bringing a guy like Josh Oliver back. And again, CJ Ham's not a lock on this team, but he makes the team. You don't have a fullback and you don't re-sign your tight end at $20 million if you're not going to run the ball. Now, if you do this and you don't run the ball, I have no idea what Kevin O'Connell's doing. But if you are going to do this and you bring back Aaron Jones, like and you go get Jordan Mason, you know what I mean? Like, they're doing everything that sounds like they want to be more gritty and blue collar like the Lions. Yeah. And I think that's the answer. You still have Justin Jefferson. You still have Jordan Addison. You can still throw for 3,000, 3,500 yards, but you need to run the ball. You need to have a 1,000-yard rusher or at least a 900-yard rusher, maybe a 900 and 800-yard rusher. And maybe that's what this Jordan Mason, Aaron Jones combo is. 1, keep them both healthy. But 2, you have guys like CJ Ham and Josh Oliver that you can run outside zone. You can run lead, and you can get to the edge with those big bodies. And I mean, and look at Christian Darrisaw. We're not sure, but you have other offensive linemen that you can plug into and go big. Like, you have the bodies. But my biggest thing is the red zone and the Lions. I think Kevin O'Connell realizes, like, I can't throw the ball 11 times in the red zone. I got to be able to run the ball.
Yeah. Speaking of the run game, speaking of the blocking game, pleasant surprise yesterday as Christian Darrisaw was in uniform. We discuss his immediate future next on the Minnesota Football Party. Today's show brought to you by FanDuel. NBA Finals are here. Game 3 tonight. It's going to be exciting. The series shifts to Indiana. Pacers +5, underdogs +190 on the money line. This is the game that Indiana has to have. I think they're going to have the most urgency. I like taking Indiana and the points at FanDuel. There's more ways than just that, though, to wager. Dozens, maybe hundreds of player props. You can put together a live same-game parlay. You can view performance trends to help inform your wager. There's more ways to play than ever. This is big. This is the NBA Finals. This is the Stanley Cup Final. Lots of options at FanDuel. And new customers can now bet $5. If they win that bet, you get $200 in bonus bets. Find like a good baseball money line during the day to bet that $5. Then you get the $200 in bonus bets. Then you can have some fun with the NBA Finals. Put together your same-game parlays, win big, make every moment more at FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, we got some good news yesterday from the Minnesota Vikings with Christian Darrisaw in uniform. Big old brace on the leg. I mean, not exactly free of burden, but still moving around, doing individual drills. Can't say I expected to see that. 7.5 months removed from injury. Reggie, pleasant surprise on Darrisaw. Scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that he's the week 1 starter coming off the ACL and MCL tear?
I'm probably at like a 2. I think it's great to see him back out there. Mm-hmm. I think it just speaks to the type of athlete Christian Darrisaw is. Like, it's kind of surprising, but when you think about it, it's really not that surprising. He's known for being a super athletic left tackle. He can move really well. So it really makes sense that he was able to, recover enough to this point to be working out in individual drills and on the field. And I think that's a great sign. But I always felt like he's probably a candidate to start the season on the pup, just because, like, if you think about Kevin O'Connell and his time there, like, he always kind of plays the long game. He put Justin Jefferson on IR. Like, he's a person who just kind of errs on the side of caution, just like, look, we're not rushing a guy back, risking more injury. We rather take a little bit more time and then have him when we want to have him. And so I think, they've made some concessions, picking up guys like School, and they still have Brandell, and then, drafted Jackson in the first round. Like, I think they're doing enough to maybe suffice for a while. And maybe you do see a little bit more 12. You're like, you know what, we'll keep another tight end, on that left side, maybe just to help a little bit, especially as we try to establish this run game. But I think it's a great sign to see Darrisaw out there, and he looked like he was moving around well. That big, sleeve embrace is very hard to miss. And so I think, with as catastrophic of an injury as that was, it's great to see him back out there. But also, I think you still play it cautious because you just inked him to a long extension last year, and you got to play the long game. You want this guy to be your next 10-year starter or more at left tackle. So you play him slow, bring him along, get him fully back up to 100%, and then let him loose.
Julia, it's right in that range. They always say on these knee injuries, 9 to 12 months, 9 to 12 months. And I think that if he started week 1, it's like 10 and a half months. It's like right in the middle. So Reggie's a 2. 1 to 10, your confidence that he starts week 1?
I would go 4 because I think it's more likely than not that he won't start week 1. I think Reggie's right on. It's, this is a business at the end of the day, and they've invested a lot of money in this guy, and they're not going to risk injury by putting him out there week 1. I think, we won't see contact or anything like that during training camp. So what's the point of putting him out there week 1? Give him a few more weeks or something to kind of ease back into it. I do know, February is when they started to ramp him up a little bit more than he had since his injury. So back getting more mobile, back training. So I know it's been a few months. I mean, this is like such a long process. It feels like forever that this guy, that he's been out. But I just would say I don't expect to see him week 1 just because they're going to be overly cautious. And also because they have the resources to keep him off the field right now too. And I also think, they have the time early on in the season to kind of have some patience with their offense and see where they're at, and also see how desperate they are for him to get back should things go wrong. So I think they give it a few weeks, I would say, to start the season out, see how things go before they're like, oh yeah, we got to get this guy back out there. We'll see what the desperation is like at the start of the season.
Yeah, I mean, Ron, modern medicine's impressive. Like, I know there's been some talk for you getting Dante Culpepper on your show. I think about Dante. Tore up a couple ligaments in his knee, and it didn't end his career, but it kind of was the beginning of the end for him. And here we are, Darrisaw tears up a couple ligaments, and 7.5 months, he's running around again. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, the best thing for him, too, is he's not – so devil's advocate. One, he's not a running back. He's not a receiver. He's not a quarterback. He doesn't have to move lateral, or he doesn't have to move, like, cut and do all that. A lot of his is go back, go forward. But, there is the run game. There is the screen game. There is the shifting and being able to react to when guys move. And you don't know how well you feel until you have to react to somebody spinning off of you like Jonathan Grenard or Van Ginkel. But then the other side of it, he is 300 plus pounds. That's a lot of weight on his knees. And so I think there's both sides of that. He's at a position where, you can kind of control his movement. But then he's also a big guy. So that's a lot of weight on that knee. I think for the Minnesota Vikings and for himself, and you're right, Sam, for Dante Culpepper, guys like that get hurt and it just never is the same. He has to be smart. He's young, he's not even close to 30 right now. So the best thing for him is to maybe take it 12 months. So that week 6, week 7. So when you think about the ability to fill in a guy, maybe not to say what's his name, Donovan Jackson's going to be the tackle for the start just because he could do it. Blake Brando at guard, maybe. I do know they bought in the offensive tackle from the Titans. So he potentially could just be over there until Darrisaw's ready to go. The sad thing is the blind side of the right-handed quarterback. And so for that too, maybe a Josh Oliver is needed to say, hey, you're going to stay over here in passing downs. We're going to go, 2 wides and treat TJ Hawkinson like the third wide receiver. But you're going to be an additional blocker instead of CJ Ham. We're going to have Josh Oliver maybe 1-by-1 off the tackle. You're helping this left tackle all season until we get Christian Darrisaw back. There's a lot of things you can do with combo blocks. And the best thing about it is you have Justin Jefferson. You don't need a ton of time with Justin Jefferson. There's route combos you can run and kind of do quick game, do screen game, do some stuff like that. Ty Felton can run. Jalen Naylor can run. So Jordan Addison can run. So there's a lot of things you can do with this offense. And honestly, the best thing to help out a not so seasoned tackle or not one of your best tackles is run the ball. Just run the doggone ball. Like run it to O'Neal's side. You can run right outside. And if you go back to the Vikings stats, I'm not going to get statty on it, but a lot of their big runs actually went right. I don't know if it's because Christian Darrisaw was quote unquote the backside, so you would have the strong side rusher there, and the front side rusher is usually a guy that's not as well as supporting the run. But a lot of the big runs for the Vikings came off tackle and then cutting it back going right. So, I mean, that's the best way to handle that too if Christian Darrisaw is not ready to go week 1. But honestly, I feel like you could be rushing it if you don't see – I mean, you're right, Sam. That big brace, it doesn't look like he's ready to really move. But the best thing I saw was him just getting down in the stance. The fact that he can bend it and, it might hurt a little bit, but whatever. But the fact that he's working through that scar tissue, getting that stuff moved around, I think that's the biggest key.
Yeah, I mean, if we're doing the 1 to 10, I think I'm a 5. I'm right in the middle. I do think. Apologies for the voice. I'll say it a million times. It's going to be hard for him to do a lot in training camp. It's going to be hard for him to do a lot of 11 on 11s. I think in that time frame. So will he be ready for the season when it comes around? Will he have had enough reps with the group with Donovan Jackson? Will his cardio be good? Like, will he be ready to go? Having not maybe done a lot in training camp? That's the big question. Probably a pup candidate, like Reggie said. Quick pause. When we return, Brian Flores speaks, and I pose the philosophical question. What is the patience threshold with JJ McCarthy if there's any early season issues? Back after this. We're brought to you today by Skylight. Say goodbye to sticky notes, scribbled plans on the fridge, overlapping calendar invites. Skylight Calendar brings clarity to the chaos, helps families stay organized without the stress. I need Skylight. I've got 2 kids. Life is chaotic. There's a lot going on. I think last week we just totally forgot. My son had a birthday party to go to. Just forgot about it. He was sad. We were sad. We need Skylight. They make it simple to track appointments, practices, dinners, reminders, all in one easy-to-see place. You can assign everyone their own color on Skylight to kind of solve some of that confusion, like who's doing what. All right, well, you assign a color code it. That's always a little easier. Nice 15-inch HD screen as well, so there's good clarity. Skylight's offering our listeners $30 off their 15-inch calendar by going to skylightcal.com/NFL. Skylightcal.com/NFL for $30 off your 15-inch calendar. Skylightcal.com/NFL. SKYLIGHTCAL.com/NFL.
Sam, that was an incredibly personal ad read there. Everybody was sad.
They tell us to personalize, Reggie. I'm letting you in on the ground floor. My failures as a parent. It was probably the saddest moment of his life so far that mom and dad forgot to take him to the birthday party he was supposed to go to. Yeah, terrible person. So
Also, RotoWire. This is Christian Darrisaw to them.
is that Marcus Davenport? Is that Cameron
That is
Jordan?
Marcus Davenport. Yep. So
what are we doing?
according
RotoWire?
to them, Marcus Davenport, aka Christian Darrisaw, progressing well.
Yeah, they probably competed against each other in like 4 practices before Marcus Davenport got hurt. Brian Flores spoke yesterday, and I thought it was insightful, particularly on the defensive line. I thought Julia's guy, Dallas Turner, got a lot of love. Dallas
That's what
Turner.
I was thinking the same thing when you asked about his presser.
Well,
I thought that
yeah,
was
take it away. Tell us what's your optimism about your guy, Dallas Turner, this year. B-Flow calling him like basically a third starter on the defensive line.
Yeah. He was like, I don't ever want to say that he's like behind those guys because I consider it having 3 starters in there. And he just was very hopeful about Dallas's year this year. I think he was a little bit insightful too about like, we were always kind of wondering if Dallas was having a little bit of a hard time adjusting just to the league and being behind guys. You come from Alabama where you're a captain on the team and you're the guy, and then you come in and you're trying to figure out, and you're coming to a new place, a new environment, and a new climate. And it kind of seemed like Brian Flores was hinting a little bit that maybe it was a bit of a transition for Dallas last year. And he was saying that this year it's just familiarity for him, like being back, having his schedule. He was talking about like even just a new house, a new commute to work, like can make it hard on just every day trying to adjust to being in the NFL and being in Minnesota, a place that, it's not anything like where he's from, which is Florida and Alabama. So I think it sounded like Brian Flores had a lot of optimism for Dallas, and has high expectations for him this year. And I think it's all good things for Vikings fans to hear from their defensive coordinator when it comes to talking about a guy like Dallas. It seems like he's very invested in not only him as a player, but him as a person. And I think that we pick up on that from Brian Flores, but it was very interesting just to hear him talk about like this young guy and how excited he is for the year that he's going to have. So he's very optimistic about Dallas and his season. So I don't know, all good things. That was the main thing that stuck out to me was him just saying like, he's not behind those guys. He's considered a starter with the rest of them, which I thought was very cool.
Yeah, I think what that brings to my mind, Ron, is I'm going to make up a word: rotationality. There's a rotationality in this defense. It's almost like they have 15 starters to fill all the snaps, because you think about the defensive line: Hargrave, Phillips, Jonathan Allen. They really like Jalen Redmond, Brian Flores said yesterday. They've got Turner as the third end. They've got Josh Metellus, who's the rover. They've got Mekhi Blackman and Jeff Okudah. Like, they've got corners to rotate in. There's just a lot of bodies to work in that are all pretty legit on this defense. And Flores has the luxury of having to figure out where they all fit.
Yeah, and when you think about that, the ability to move guys around, the ability to, and by the way, I called Josh Metellus a rover a long time ago. You probably remember that. Like, that's what I'm glad everybody's understanding that role now. That was like Florida State back in the 90s. And so Brian Flores, and my guess is Brian Flores probably looked that up too and remember that. Like, oh man, I remember Florida State used to do this like this, and it worked. I mean, this is back with the Deion Sanders. I'm not trying to make myself sound old, but back with the Deion Sanders days, back with the Bobby Bowden days. That was the good old days of Florida State. And so that's what I love to see about this defense. Is you're right, Sam. It's I don't know the word you just used or made up, rotationality. But I like that. I like that word. I don't know if it's going to enter Beyonce's dictionary, but it's out there. Bootylicious probably is there first before rotationality, but we'll try to get Brian Flores to get a word in the dictionary. But yeah, I think that's the key. We talked about the years past of D tackle and how the lack of hurt them in the run game. Now they have the ability to have a 5-man front with all these D tackles and feel like, you know what? Hey, Lions, you want to run the ball? Let's go. Let's run the ball. I think that was the key. Is in the 3-4 defense, you're very susceptible to a team willing to go big. Well, now you sign all these D tackles. Now you can actually switch out, go 5-man front, put Jonathan Kennard at a true will linebacker, put Van Ginkel at a true will linebacker, and then put Blake Cashman at a true Mike backer, and then have a 5-man front, go bear like the Bears used to do in the 80s. And then you have your normal Josh Metellus walk into a box like a normal strong safety. You have your normal Harrison Smith as a normal safety. And then you have your 2 corners dealing with the 2 receivers, and you have to go man in that situation. I think Byron Murphy can do it. It's going to be which other corner can line up and say who's going to cover. If it's Jamison Williams on one side, you got Amon-Ra St. Brown on the other side, who's going to man these guys up? Because we got to be able to put 8 in the box to be able to stop, Gibbs and what's his name for running the ball. And so that's the thing I'm liking about this defense is you have the ability to, with all these pieces, to do that. The other thing is fresh bodies. When you're going no huddle or hustle or hurry offense, and you got guys that are gassed out there, this is going to give them the ability to keep guys fresh on and off the field.
Reg, takeaways from Flores, anything new? Anything you'd like to echo?
Yeah, so I do think that it was interesting how he talked about Dallas Turner. And here's the thing. I was seeing things on X saying, like, who's going to be the most disappointing first-round pick, Rob Dillingham or Dallas Turner? And I'm just like, how are we here already? Like, they were rookies. They're still learning. And here's the thing. I thought I picked up on, I guess, some wisdom, if you will, just listening to Jonathan Allen yesterday. He is a vet with 10-plus years in the league. And even he talked about how difficult it is coming over to learn Brian Flores' system. And he's excited about it. But I remember going back to the first year under Flo, how guys were talking about they were still understanding things as the weeks went on. Like, he was still giving them information that they were trying to learn and apply on the fly in that first year. And I remember how some guys kind of said last year how, second year in the system, they were able to really kind of understand what he wants to do, especially somebody like Harrison Smith kind of saying those things, like he kind of understands better what he wants to do. And I think that's crucial. To Julia's point, when you have a guy who is just a rookie, and one, he's playing behind 2 should-be all-pro guys, but 2 Pro Bowl guys, and you're still trying to figure out this complex defense that's probably more difficult than any defense that you've ever had to learn in your life, while you're playing behind these 2, Pro Bowl guys. Like, there's a learning curve there. And I think that part, to hear Brian Flores speak so glowingly of Dallas Turner, and I do think he's in for a breakout year in year 2. He's beefed up a little bit, and I think he's probably, at a different level of understanding where he could be trusted as a part of that rotation a little bit more. And so I think it's very complimentary for Flores to speak as highly of him as he did yesterday. But also, he's excited for a lot of the other guys. He talked about how excited he was about the possibility of getting Isaiah Rodgers into the fold, and now he gets to work with him, and he gets Jonathan Allen coming over, who's very excited to be a part of the defense. And he said a part of the culture that Kevin O'Connell and the coaching staff are building in Minnesota. Like, it's going to be something special on that defensive side. I think they are really equipping Flores with the guys that he feels like he needs to really make his system be as effective as possible. And I'm excited to see what they go to work to do.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see if Flores keeps the pedal to the metal from a blitz perspective too, because he's led the league the last 2 years, but now he's got more talent on that defensive line. Will he be able to just send the minimum more often and get home with some of these core guys on the line without devoting extra pressure to get after quarterbacks? That's what I'm going to be watching early in the season as well from B-Flow.
Hey, but Theo Jackson said it best. That's not in his DNA. Like, he doesn't want to do that. He likes being sexy. Like, like, it's making him famous. I don't know if he'll ever get a head coaching opportunity, but it's making him defensively famous. Like, people love talking about how ridiculous his defense is.
It's cool. I can't wait to unveil it. I mean, he's got all the resources he could possibly want to do any package he's ever dreamed of.
Yeah, I think Sam too, like to that point, there were times where he was kind of doing it out of necessity, especially his first year as defensive coordinator with the Vikings. He was just like, look, I got to generate pressure however I can. And then last year, that interior wasn't necessarily getting the push that maybe they needed. So the guys on the outside were having to work a little bit harder. And so now that he has the guys, like, I'm interested to see what he dials up just for the sake of dialing it up, because he's just a madman, not necessarily out of necessity because he's trying to generate some type of pressure or generate some type of, exotic look to gain some type of an advantage. He has more of the guys in his system now.
Super quick pause, and then I ask the question, what is the patience level going to be with JJ McCarthy in the early season? Be right back. All right, final topic of the day. And also be sure to subscribe. We'd appreciate that. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for watching, listening. Again, our audio is on the Locked On Vikings podcast feed, video on Locked On Sports Minnesota, and the Locked On Vikings YouTube channel. All right, Ron, will there be unlimited patience this year with JJ McCarthy? I think we all anticipate him being good. I don't think we assume there's going to be too many problems, but if there are growing pains beyond what we expect in the early season, and the Vikings are in this Super Bowl window, right? Like, this roster is ready-made to win now.
Yeah.
Does JJ McCarthy get an unlimited leash this year? Or is there a limit to what the team would deal with if he struggles more than we think?
There's going to be a limit, but not like a limit like we think. So here's the thing. Like, I had a prop, but I think one of my kids took it out of here. But kid gloves. Like, you look at what does that mean? So Tony Dungy used to always say this about telling kids the stove is hot. You have to tell a kid the stove is hot, but eventually the kid's going to touch the stove anyway, and they have to learn the hard way. Kevin O'Connell was going to tell JJ McCarthy the stove is hot. Don't do this. Don't do that. Don't do this. Don't do that. But eventually, JJ McCarthy's going to like do what JJ McCarthy does and like feel like it's college. And he's going to make a ill-advised throw that's going to be all over social media. The play-by-play guy, I don't know who it's going to be at the time. I don't know if it's going to be on the Manning cast, but somebody's going to break it down and be like, that was an ill-advised throw. That was a Brett Favre back across the body throw. That was a whatever. When he learns that, that's the hard lesson he has to learn so he doesn't do it again. So I think they're going to have all the patience in the world because they know he's technically a rookie. He has not played a down of football in a real game besides preseason. In the preseason, he looked great. But we all know a lot of those guys ended up in the UFL. A lot of those guys ended up in Canada. Like some of those guys, like not a lot of those guys played as far as cornerbacks and safeties played in the NFL last year that JJ McCarthy faced. Some did, but not all of them. What we need to see is, I guess, this Patriots joint practices, like that's going to give us a good idea of what he can do and where he can throw the ball. And I think that's what we're all waiting for. Like, we're waiting for Stephon Diggs and Cardi B to show up, and we're waiting for that to be a thing here in Minnesota. Yes, I want to see if Offset shows up to the All-America as well, looking for Stephon Diggs. But we want to see if that's going to happen. What JJ McCarthy does with the ones-on-ones, because that's the best thing about joint practices. Reggie and Julia both know that as well, being there. Ones go against ones, twos go against twos. Why? Because it's kind of closed circuit. We know fans still get to videotape it, which is so annoying that like the media can't record these, but fans can go viral because they get a video in the stands of JJ McCarthy throwing a touchdown to Justin Jefferson against Vrabel's number one defense. But that's different. I'm not gonna vent about that. I'm not gonna vent about the videos and the phones. But that's what we need to see. Other than that, I think they're going to have a lot of patience with him. I mean, Sam Darnold, coming from Sam Darnold to JJ McCarthy, honestly, nothing against Sam Darnold. I don't think there's a huge fall off. There's just a little bit more experience, I guess I'd say. And then again, JJ McCarthy had a full season with Kevin O'Connell, but they're going to have patience. I mean, what is their option? They don't really have another option. Right. They didn't bring in Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is a Steeler. So you have to have patience at this point. Like, there's no other options. I mean, they're not going to Sam Howell. Max Brosmer is not coming to save the day. So they have to have patience. But I just think they were going to have it anyway, though. But there's going to be some kid gloves. They're going to try to, like, keep him under control for a little bit and then say, don't do this, don't do that, and then hope that he goes along with Kevin O'Connell's plan. Yeah, Julia, I think Kevin O'Connell is just so sensitive to failing a young quarterback because Kevin O'Connell was that guy, and he felt like maybe he didn't get, the best guidance
in the world when he was a young quarterback. He is going to be, I think, so empathetic to what JJ McCarthy is going through that I agree with Ron. It's going to be a long leash if there are some of those early season issues.
Yeah, I don't see them like benching him for anyone else that's in the quarterback room. I think Ron's exactly right. My answer to the question was going to be you have to have patience. It is a rookie season for this guy, and I think it's just like such a weird switch that's happened in the NFL in the past few years, especially when it comes to the quarterback position, where they just expect guys. Like, this is not how it used to be, where you would just expect quarterbacks to come in and within their first game in the league, they're supposed to be this superstar. And I think that maybe because you've seen some anomalies, like, with the Commanders and things like that, and you see some of that happening, but at the same time, it's like the expectation that every single quarterback's going to develop that quickly and figure it out is just a little ridiculous to me. And I think that you have to be a little bit more realistic when it comes to the progression of a young quarterback and just how difficult, and especially how difficult it is to come off an injury like this. He hasn't seen the game of football really at a super competitive level in like 2 years. So I think it's just one of those things where it's like you have to have patience with him because you literally don't have another option. Like Ron said, it's just and I think Kevin O'Connell, I think he looks forward to the challenge that it is to bring in a young guy and teach him about your offense and turn. But I think he's excited to turn JJ McCarthy into the quarterback that he believes that he can be. So I think that there's a lot of patience just from both of those aspects.
Like, imagine being a Chiefs fan the offseason of 2018 saying, all right, there's probably going to be some issues with Patrick Mahomes early on. We're going to have to take his lumps and deal with it. I just looked up how Patrick Mahomes started the year that he took over. First 4 games, 14 touchdowns, no interceptions. Average like 35 points a game. Reg, can you imagine if that were the start? What if that's the start of JJ McCarthy's career? Holy cow.
Yeah, I don't think Kevin O'Connell beefed up that offensive line and re-signed Josh Oliver to have that be JJ McCarthy's future coming right out of the gates. And I think it is, to Julia's point, tough when you see guys that have done well like Jaden Daniels and like CJ Stroud the year before where he took the Texans to the playoffs. But he did have his lumps the first 6 weeks of the season, and then you saw him kind of start to figure things out. And so I think that's to be expected. But here's the thing, and I'm paying off the tease here. Mm-hmm. We all knew that Sam Darnold had a rocket arm, like it was on full display. That uncorked shot that he took to Justin Jefferson that ended up going for 97 yards for a touchdown was evident. Like, quick flick of the wrist, and that thing is down there. It has been interesting to me listening to and seeing all the people talk about the zip on JJ McCarthy's passes. And I don't know. I feel like the book coming out wasn't necessarily that he just was this big arm guy, but like it seems like the narrative has kind of shifted that McCarthy is just this big arm guy. Now, look, Kevin O'Connell has done a lot with his mechanics so far just to kind of simplify things so he can just drive the ball better. I know a lot of people on X have been talking about the leg kick that JJ McCarthy did on his throwing motion, and now he's a little bit more fluid, just kind of like driving the ball. And so I think that's interesting. Josh Metellus yesterday said he hasn't seen a quarterback in that building with as much zip. Maybe Sean Mannion. He said, shout out to Sean Mannion, who definitely had a crazy rocket arm. And if you remember that game against the Packers where Kirk Cousins had COVID, Chris Collinsworth just wouldn't shut up about how Sean Mannion was this guy who played baseball. He has a rocket. He has a cannon. He throws a fastball. And it was just like, okay, but they're down like 20 points, bro. Like, can we stop this? And so I thought that was a very interesting. And obviously, Metellus knows well, going against Mannion in practice and all that. So he knows the type of zip that he had on the ball. But I just thought after having Darnold in the building last year, it is just kind of interesting some of the narratives that have come out with McCarthy talking about how strong his arm is and all that stuff. And I think, that's going to be nice, to see once things get going. But I don't know. It's just been strange. It's just been strange. Just let the kid kind of make his own way.
No doubt. No doubt. We end the show with one final important breaking news sounder. Reggie Wilson heading off to paternity leave starting tomorrow. We wish you the best. We wish you well. Good luck with everything, and we will see you August, late July training camp.
Yeah, maybe I'll get the leeway to pop in on here on one of these Wednesdays still, but we'll see. We'll see.
That'd be great. That'd be great. Best of luck to you. Thanks to
you.
Julia, Care 11, Ron Johnson, The Ron Johnson Show on Tuesdays, and I'm Sam Ekstrom. It's Locked On Sports Minnesota. It's the Locked On Vikings channel. It's the Minnesota Football Party. Glad you joined today. We'll talk to you next time.